that stuff the Bible says about women, right? It's so good. What? No, it says women are inferior to men. What are you doing? Looking for where it says women are inferior to men. Oh, it's in there. It's not in there. The culture at the time treated women as subservient to men, but the gospel set men and women as equal. There's all that stuff about women having to submit to men. There are 7 main passages that reference women and submission. 5 of those are specific to the marriage relationship. The other 2 are specific to church roles. 0 of them say that all women have to submit to all men. Even in marriage, men shouldn't have more power. The most comprehensive passage on this is in Ephesians. It's a total of 12 verses. 3 pertain to a woman's role in the marriage. The remaining 9 are about the husband. See, 75% of the power given to the man. No. These verses explain that the husband is responsible for the physical and spiritual health of his wife. Plus, he's commanded to cherish her and love her as himself. And he is described as one flesh with his wife. Can you imagine how radical this was in a culture that treated women like property? So a husband is supposed to be nice. That's the bare minimum. Not just nice. These verses compare the husband-wife relationship to the Jesus-church relationship, telling the husband to be willing to lay down his life for his wife. Still, a wife shouldn't have to submit. You still have a problem with the word submit. What do you think it means? That a wife just has to do whatever her husband says? No translation from the original Greek defines this word to be blanket obedience, that a wife is forcibly under absolute control of her husband. Rather, most interpretations mean to voluntarily place oneself under an authority. In light of everything a husband is supposed to be, this doesn't seem all that frightening. I just can't get on board with submission. I think it's good to remember this instruction was being written to new Christ followers, many of whom likely had spouses that weren't Christ followers yet. And some propose that the Greek word for submit used in this passage was a word primarily used for military efforts. It translates to deploy yourself under, and that it was a metaphor for military type support. Rather than describing women as merely submitting in terms of obedience, it could also mean something more like go to battle for. A few verses later, we read about putting on the full armor of God. Kind of supports this battle interpretation. Imagine the difference in our attitude towards these verses if we read it as go to battle for your husband versus submit yourself to your husband. So like a woman warrior for Christ? You could say that. This passage was quite empowering for women during a time where women were not empowered. First, by saying that wives could be a conduit by which their husbands come to Christ. 2, by explicitly stating that a wife should be treated as an equal by her husband.